So how are you describing the current market in the area right now?
It's very dynamic right now. It is a balanced market, so we're definitely not seeing the activity level that we saw 2020, 2021 during COVID. It peaked in February, March of 2022. Prices dropped about 28-30% at that time within about 6 months. And then it has rebounded since then, but definitely not to the levels that it was previously. Our average price for 2024 was $636,667, which is actually up 2.3% from the year before.
Okay.
From December the year before.
And is that a pretty normal rise in price year to year?
Traditionally, London sees about a 2 to 5% increase in price during balanced markets. From about 2017, it started increasing a lot quicker. We were hitting numbers of 11%, 15%, and then in 2020, it was 30% climb. 2021 was 35% climb.
Okay.
So this is more traditional numbers now.
All right. And what was it that was just, could you quickly remind us what it was that was happening during the pandemic that had those numbers going crazy like that?
Supply and demand was a lot of it, and we are still in a housing shortage here in Ontario. So a lot of people were trying to get out of the bigger, denser cities like Toronto, the GTA, Kitchener, and they were all coming down the 401, landing in Kitchener, Hamilton, London. We basically said people were driving until they could afford a home, right? So Toronto prices are typically around double London's prices. Kitchener-Waterloo is about $125,000 on average higher than London. So people were just driving to areas that they could afford.
All right. So over the last several months or so, the Bank of Canada keeps lowering its key interest rate. What kind of impact do you expect that to have on the market in 2025?
Absolutely, yeah. So we saw 11 straight increases from them, and then they held steady for about 5 months. And now the last 5 announcements, they've dropped. The first 3 were 0.25% each, and the last 2, including December, were 0.5% each. And we've got another rate announcement at January 29th, I believe it is, the end of this month, which they're expecting probably another 0.25% drop. So right now we're at 3.25% for the Bank of Canada rate. That is definitely spurring confidence in the buyer's market. A lot of buyers have been sitting on the sidelines for a while since the pandemic, just saying, I'm going to wait for house prices to drop and interest rates to drop. Interest rates went from 1.82% range up to 6.5, right? So that makes a huge difference in your affordability. So now, if a buyer was pre-approved, say 6 months ago, and interest rates have dropped a bit, maybe they were qualified for 600 before, now they might be able to get 650, 700 range. Coupled also with December 15th, the government brought in 30-year amortizations. So they bumped it up from the 25-year to 30-year, which, you're going to pay more interest, obviously, over that time, but it could be a way, another tool to let more buyers into the doorway and start building some equity.
Do you expect some potential buyers to continue to wait just to see how low this interest rate might go?
They always do. It's almost impossible to time the bottom of a market or the peak of a market, right? So, it's what we often find is the spring market is often a rush. So March, April, May is traditionally the busiest activity throughout the year. Right now, December, January, February is usually the quietest. I usually recommend to buyers, if you're thinking of getting into a home, right now is a fantastic time to purchase because the serious sellers are still on the market right now, and interest rates are decent. Yeah, they might come down another 0.25% roughly. Those are usually on the variables when the Bank of Canada's making those adjustments. But again, talk to your mortgage agent and get advice from them as well on mortgage rates.
So what kind of expectations do you have for sellers this year?
All the economists we've been listening to are saying the spring is going to be a very, very active market. Now, that being said, as I mentioned, we still have a shortage of housing in the area. Government is still trying to do more housing starts. But it's going to take a while to ease that tension, right? So there's still a high demand, and London and St. Thomas area is still a very affordable area. St. Thomas also has the Volkswagen plant coming in, which is creating a lot of housing boom in that area. And it's a very affordable area as well compared to London, right? So we expect for sellers that it'll be a competitive market for sure, but we think with buyers jumping into the market in the springtime, it will be very active, and who knows, we might start getting back into some multiple offer scenarios. Probably not to the extent that we saw in during the pandemic years, but you might get the occasional one that has 2 to 5 offers on it.
What kinds of homes are people looking for these days?
The most common, well, our average price, like I said, is $636,000 and change. So that's typically your 1-floor home, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms. It might have a garage. 2 stories are also very popular as well. However, the starters, the first-time buyers, it's very challenging for some of them to get into the market. So they're opting more for condos, townhouse condos or apartment condos, which usually have a cheaper starting point. They do have condo fees attached typically, but those are usually, I explain those as your forced savings for any maintenance that you have to do on your home.
Right. And just before we go, Dale, do you have any advice for someone who's considering getting into the market for the first time this year?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to start by talking to a mortgage agent, right? You need your pre-approval. You need to have all your ducks in a row because when you do start looking for a home, it's amazing how quickly it can actually happen when you put your mind to it. You plant that seed and you think, hey, I want to start looking for a home in 6 months. And then all of a sudden, within a month or a couple weeks, you're putting in an offer on a place. So yeah, reach out to a local realtor, get some advice, do a buyer consultation, and same with your mortgage agent as well, just to know what your affordability is.